some of the biggest red flags for you when vetting a potential teaming partner?
Okay, so the process of calling, soliciting quotes, having them attend a site visit, these are all things that you as a prime government contractor, if you're looking to team, you need to be vetting, okay? You're gonna be going through a vetting process, and the vetting process is essentially beginning to work with them because you wanna know how they're gonna be to work with if you are awarded a contract before you are essentially more locked in with them. So one of the biggest things is seeing how they are with following deadlines and timelines. Okay, and it's a huge red flag if you ask for something on such a date and time and they don't deliver. Okay, or if they attend the site visit late, or if they're supposed to give you your quote, so many days before the proposal is due. If they're not doing that, or even simple things like scheduling a follow-up phone call, and you call them and they don't answer, or you email them and there's no response, or they make excuses or apologies, right? Okay, there's always the one-off thing that can't be avoided. But if you start to see early signs of this is an early red flag. Another red flag that's really important for you to know, and I highly recommend you take notes on these things because you will come across them. And if you don't handle them properly, they will bite you in the butt, okay? So the second red flag is if they've been burnt before. And there's not gonna be any guessing, okay? You're not gonna be able to miss this one. So if you're calling, you get on a discovery call, say with a commercial-based business, prospective teaming partner, you might hear them say things like this. Like, oh, I've had people like you call me before, or I used to work on one of these contracts and I didn't get paid on time, or I went to a site visit and I never heard back from anybody, so I just wasted my time or my employee's time going to visit the site. Okay, so these are not necessarily your fault, but because they've been burnt before, it's going to be a lot of extra work for you to work with them as a team member if you do decide to move forward with them, or if they even consider taking additional steps with you, meaning if you're able to even tap dance and prove yourself that you're different, right? It's not the same thing to say as, oh yeah, I've gotten calls on this bid, 7 companies have already called me. That's also very common. It's not necessarily a red flag. To that, you can just let them know, well, hey, do you want to be on the winning team or not, right? There's no reason. They've already done the work. They've already given out quotes. There's no reason why they can't share their price with you as well, right? But these are more red flags, getting burnt and not following timelines that you would rather discover now before, as I said, getting into something a little bit more concrete or like a marriage if you are awarded a contract as a team.
How can you check to see if a teaming partner might try to cut you out of the bid?
Okay, so this is simple, short answer. Check to see if they have a cage code. One way to do this, the technical way to do this is go over to sam.gov, search entities, entity registration, and put in their company name. Try to use multiple different variances, include the LLC, whatever it is that they have on their name, to see if a cage code is associated with them. You can also type in their company name and the words, quote unquote, cage code, put it in your favorite search engine, Google, Bing, whatever, DuckDuckGo, and see if that returns a search result. Very often that will pull up something faster and more reliable because sometimes it can be missed searching in sam.gov. So if they have the cage code already, then the conversation quickly becomes about why do they need you, right? Like, do they clearly mark their interests as not being a prime? And if not, you are exposing yourself to a bit of risk of them cutting you out of the deal. So I highly recommend before even calling potential teaming partners, take 10 seconds, do this quick little search, one of these 2 examples or both of them that I just gave you. That way, if you do get them on the phone, you can, at some point during your discovery call, you can address that issue. You don't want to dance around it. And you're just going to leave yourself open for risk if you don't directly call it out.
What can you do to try to ensure teaming partners meet proposal deadlines?
Okay, so something you should always do, a good thing to take a note on, move their deadlines ahead of yours, okay? Move their deadlines ahead of your deadlines. This gives you a bit of a buffer zone, right? And it'll be hard to do this if you select a bid that's due in a week, right? So you have to be starting off from a place where you have enough time to work on this. I recommend 2 to 3 weeks, lead time before your proposal is due. But say if Q&A is due, in 3 days, okay, theirs is due in 1 or 2 days, right? If the proposal is due, at the end of the week, theirs is due to you at the latest by the beginning of the week, or at the latest the middle of the week. That way there's a bit more time for some back and forth. And also if they miss their deadline, it may not necessarily end the deal. I have seen small businesses, say, hey, this is when it's due for the government, and you don't necessarily have to share those details. It gets you into the right communication channels and communication structures, hierarchy, if you will, because everything should flow from you to your teaming partners. It's just like going on site. Teaming partners should not be having meaningful conversations with the contracting officer or the core. Those conversations should be between you, and then between you with them, and between with you and contracting and the core. So you don't want them leading the project. You need to lead the project. And the way that you do that is by setting deadlines ahead of time for them that include a bit of a cushion, a bit of a buffer zone.
Why will teaming partners lose you the bid so often unless they are educated?
Okay, every single time, guys, and I say this a lot, every single time the sub or the teaming partner will lose you the bid. Why is this? Even though some of you hear me say this, you don't get it yet, okay? So I'll explain it again. The sub will lose you the bid every single time because they hear the federal government and they think deep pockets. What happens is they're commercially based and they're used to pricing jobs a certain way. They've got their letterhead, they got their markup, they got their margins, and their anticipated crew, their anticipated supplies, like whatever this is, supplies, services, whatever, doesn't matter. You get where I'm saying. They have their usual way of doing this, but when it comes to a federal contract, they charge more than what they should in the commercial space. The problem with that is that the government has already done their research called the IGCE, Independent Government Cost Estimate, of what this should cost. Okay? Commercial rates. So then when they change their rates or whatever for a federal project and they raise it, now all of a sudden you're kind of going outside the government's, the ROM, their range, their anticipated dollar value, plus or minus, because they're trying to charge and make, additional profit. They're trying to rip off the government, essentially trying to rip off taxpayers, okay? So the sub, for this reason, will lose you the bid every single time.
How can you ensure teaming partners are pricing properly?
Okay, and it's kind of like, this is a follow-on, so like, what do you do about it? So you need to do your own research, right? We have AI these days. You also have, if you have a board of, advisors, anything like that, like I teach my students to do, or any other means or methods for kind of balancing and checking, checks and balances, how accurate this is, not to mention getting more than one quote. That's usually the first kind of rung to jump over. But then run estimates to the AI. And if you have any SMEs in your family, colleagues in your network, you can run the scope against them and just really try to get your own comparison of what this should cost. And I recommend breaking that down into two things, parts and people. If it's just supplies only, it'll just be, parts, just supplies. If it's people, then it's people, or if it's a mix, it's a mix. Okay, it's an easy way to think about it. And then find what those commercial rates are, right? And then include any sort of markup that you're going to put on, any sort of overhead, whatever, right? Compare that to what they are giving you. And then what you do is you do a pricing walkthrough phone call. Okay, too many of you guys and gals, small businesses, government contractors, are getting a quote and then taking this as their price. That's just the starting point. You are not done yet. You need to take their quote, take their price, and then get on the phone with them and go through a breakdown. And if they're just giving you one number, they need to give you a pricing breakdown. Okay, you need to push back. Then you go through line by line. Why is this? Why is that? And you challenge it. And it's not to be like you're trying to even necessarily lower their price at the stage. But one thing that you are checking for is to make sure they're not overpricing it. Okay, does this really need 3 people, or can this be done with 1 person? That could literally make the difference between you winning the job or losing the job. That is a golden nugget. Like, write that down, guys. Take that with you. It's so simple to do, but so many of you still don't do it. Walk through the quote, challenge the parts and people areas. Do we really need this many quantity of hours, or do we really need this many quantity of supplies, whatever it is? And then you also, again, run that through AI, back it up, see what a minimally viable approach would be. Now, all of a sudden, you are approaching this as a problem solver to the contracting officer rather than somebody who just got a quote and you're just sending it off. That doesn't solve a problem. you looking at a scope of work and creatively and mathematically trying to calculate and figure out a way to get this done on maybe a lower cost basis, or maybe a different approach if it's the best value, where you're still going to get really good, value to the government, but maybe you can save a few dollars on it. That's problem solving, and that's the difference. And not enough of you new primes are doing this. You're just slapping quotes if you're working with teaming partners. And even if you're self-performing, you're kind of doing the same thing. You're not scrutinizing what is the minimum we need. You're giving bells and whistles, and that's losing you the bids.
What was your worst experience working with a teaming partner?
So this was out in Pennsylvania at a firing range, okay, and we had to kind of repaint and do some rehab to it. And we had a local company we were partnering with. Particularly, we had hired as part of our crew a local site super to lead our crew on site. So long story short, what happened was the job was supposed to be done by a certain time, and the job was not finished. Okay, wrong paint, wrong this, wrong that. So then the job had to keep getting extended. We learned, which we should have knew early on, that this job also had LDs. Okay, do you know what LDs are? Liquidated damages. What is that? It means every day that the job is not finished beyond the time it's supposed to be finished, your POP date, you are charged a fee. Okay, so then that becomes deducted from what the government is going to pay you. Very, very, very important to pay attention to. LDs, liquidated damages. We primarily see these on construction or project-based projects. Well, and that's why we experienced it. So that was a bit of a learning curve, but more importantly, long story short, what ended up happening was they were milking the job. They were milking it. There was not a strong project management in place driving the schedule of that job. And so they were milking it because they knew when this job was over, they were going to be out of a job until they moved on to the next one. Okay. And I'm speaking more about the actual, the super and our teaming partners kind of working together, right? Without there being strong PM involvement from the company. So that was a learning curve, kind of very early on. And that's why you have to be even more involved in the projects than you even think that you need to do, right? It wasn't enough to go and visit. It wasn't enough to communicate. It wasn't enough to manage remotely. We needed to be more involved. And so that's why, guys, like there's huge risks as it is, but then you're still going to continue to learn things. And that's a personal story where we learned that experience. So guys, everything I'm speaking about hinges on you being able to actually propose and win these government contracts. And the biggest part of that is writing winning proposals that are competitive and compliant. For that reason, I created GovRFP. If you need a government proposal, get GovRFP. That's the idea. As my thank you today for staying to the end of the video, I have set the first 3 modules to actually help you write all the way up to a proposal outline, right? We got the templates in there, set 2 free. You can go and get that right now. Just got to put in your email. If you go to GovKidMethod.com, click on GovRFP, you can unlock those modules and gain access to it. In the day of increasing like AI software and all these tools, I believe it's more fundamental than ever to understand how to do this. And GovRFP is not just for beginners; it's also for immediate proposal writers, intermediate level, as well as pricing. So regardless of what your plan is, your team is, what software you have, I highly recommend that you check it out. And of course, I'm a bit biased because I built it, but I do believe it's the best proposal writing system training that you can use in a matter of hours, not days, not weeks, not months, but hours, to actually have you walking through using winning templates and a proven process that I've used with my students for years to help you generate and create a custom proposal to your actual solicitation that your contracting officer is going to receive and read and be impressed and think, wow, this company's been doing this for years, when maybe you've actually only been in the space for months. That's the quality of product it delivers. Guys, we are one of the fastest growing federal contracting YouTube channels here. If you don't want to miss future trainings, I'd love to have you be part of our community here. Consider subscribing to our channel. It really does matter. And like I said, if you're enjoying these Q&As, we've been doing a lot of these lately, and I plan to continue to push out a lot more. So you want to make sure that you don't miss those. Smash the like button for the algorithm. If you got something today, maybe one of the red flags, let me know down below in the comments which one was important for you. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next training.